What are Kenyans talking about this morning? There is a lot. What we do know, though, is that they're talking about Aden Duale. They're also talking about morning. Also, for all the lovers of the game, we do also know that Ivory Coast and Harambee Stars are also wrapping headlines this morning. I'll be telling you exactly why these conversations could be top in the minds of Kenyans this morning, just shortly after I tell you what it is that we want to talk about this morning on the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiange. Thank you very much for taking your time to begin your day with us right here at I'll be with you all the way for the next couple of hours, and we shall be talking a lot today, but most importantly we shall be looking into artificial intelligence, AI. Where are we as a country in regards to our position and our opportunities in artificial intelligence? We do know that Kenya, in terms of reliance on some sectors of AI across the world, and I'll be telling you what that is. Now, Kenya is ranking among Africa's top 3 countries in AI readiness, and that's what we have to talk about this morning, see exactly what we can do, where the opportunities lie, even as we rank top 3 in AI readiness. Good. I'll also be giving you that if you look at these numbers, you can also see that over 60% of Kenyan banks use AI for fraud detection and customer service. 4 out of 10 Kenyan tech workers are formal AI training. You can see actually where that now becomes a conversation that we need to have this morning on why we're not hitting those numbers, even as we say that we are number 3 in terms of being AI ready. We're talking about that this morning. And if you look at the $45 billion to Africa's economy by 2030. Important numbers then this morning that open up to this conversation that we're going to have on AI. I'll be introducing a guest who's journeyed across the top sectors and companies in the world in as much as this conversation for AI is concerned. Once that time comes, I'll be introducing him so that we can get into that conversation. So your questions, where we are headed in terms of AI careers, where the country say that we are AI ready, those questions are going to be answered this morning. Looking forward to that conversation myself as well. Just as we say, we're online and Look Up TV across all your social media platforms. I am at Kiange Simba. Good. Let's then take a look at what is trending this morning in your dailies, and we're going to start with there's a story here that grabbed headlines in the country, and if you do not know, I will narrate that story for you in the simplest way possible. A man woke up in the morning, walked all the way to State House, and he speared a security agent guarding State House. Looks like a movie story, isn't it? But it happened right here in the country. And I'm sorry to say that the family of the security agent is now dealing with that kind of a loss. When the guy was arrested, he said it's God who sent him to kill Satan, you know? And that's the story that you can see. The man called Kivuka Kimonyi, the suspect accused of killing a GSU officer with a bow and arrow near State House, Nairobi. That is on October 13th at Kilimani Police Station. You know, it's a story that when you read the details, you're going to be surprised. How did this man access that area? How did he walk? What a bow and arrow looks like. It's a weapon that you can't conceal. No, if you walk with it, every other person is going to say that you have that weapon. And that killer has been linked to State House. The tragic end to an unusual friendship forged at a president's residence. Now, the story is that the attacker was the son of a former State House employee. He first worked at the State House residence after completing high school in 2019 during a cleanup campaign where he met and befriended Kithuka Kimunyi. Later, he joined the elite squad guarding the premises where his life was cut short. So these guys knew each other. Yeah, they did. And their friendship started 6 years ago in 2019 when they met each other. An unusual friendship, as they call it. And that story, by the way, has been covered on page 4 and 5. And I've seen it on our social media platforms and Look Up TV as well. What do you think about it? Bizarre happenings, isn't it? How did he manage to walk with a bow and arrow? You know? An interesting picture, right? Kimunyi. The suspect was accused of killing the GSU officer. Good. Let's then cross away from that bizarre story and look at another story here that is trending on that is being covered on the Daily Nation. President William Ruto wears KDF jungle uniform before leaving State House Nairobi for the KDF Day celebrations at Moi Barracks, Eldoret, in his first time in military attire. And what he pledged new military bases, soldiers' welfare to boost war on cybercrime and terrorism. A story has been covered on page 7 of the Daily Nation. On page 7 as well, there is a story here on most popular senior school pathway, which is a STEM. And some 569,000 students have opted to study STEM in senior schools. Another 437,000 have chosen sciences, and some 121,000 students want to specialize in arts and sports. Also, some 9,000 public secondary schools have been clustered into the 4 categories, that is from C1 to C4. You've got to read that story on page 7. And by the way, for all the parents who have their kids in school, in one way or another, you do know that STEM in any developing or developed economy. So just make sure that your young learner is actually also getting to pick STEM as a pathway. And it's quite vast. There's so many areas that you can actually get into STEM. So I do believe that they are well advised from that young age. Good. On page 8, you're going to look at that story has been covered on page 8. And health, Duale battles sharp corruption claims by members of parliament. And I will be telling you that story. It's trending on our trending topics this morning. I'll be telling you how that confrontation went down and how Duale handled it. That story has been covered here on page 6. And the story is how he clashed with lawmakers during a stormy health committee meeting over graft claims in state medical scheme. On Kenyans who went to war for Putin speaking out, a former police officer recounts his experience at the front line in the Russia-Ukraine war. Officials say at least 29 Kenyans were caught up in the crisis. That story has been covered on page 3 of the Daily Nation. Good. Let's cross over then and look at the Standard this morning as well. Big stories are this morning. Again, the story that mirrors what we've seen on the Daily Nation this morning. There's a story here on Kimunyi. Relatives described Kivuka Kimunyi as a troubled loner whose actions hinted at mental instability. Allegedly, we have to wait for that to be proven professionally then. That story has been covered on page 4. And this story talks about one Kimunyi who went all the way to State House, isn't it? And shot a GSU officer. And when I say shot, he didn't use a gun, used a bow and arrow. That story has been covered on page 4 and 5. It's quite a bizarre story that we have to contend, or Kenyans have to contend with this morning. With our State House in the background. And that friendship, by the way, was also started in State House in 2019, as revealed by the Daily Nation this morning. Story that has also been covered by the Standard. The next story on the Standard this morning is on the Duale story, and they're calling it Bully in Chief. There was a public start, and it talks like this. Tempers flared in Parliament as a Health Cabinet Secretary, Aden Duale, clashed with sanction, trading insults and accusations of intimidation. The dramatic exchange, which saw lawmakers walk out and protest, laid bare deep tensions over the troubled Social Health Authority, with members of Parliament accusing the minister or the Cabinet Secretary of arrogance and contempt, while they dismissed them as junior members and fit to question. Being covered on page 6. And by the way, if you've seen those videos, then you will see exactly what we're talking about this morning as to that altercation, specifically centered around the members of Parliament who were sitting in that parliamentary session, but with one Kebagendi. I'll be telling you how that clash escalated to the point that they walked out and they were just about to start throwing jabs, you know. Interesting. In fact, as we cross over then to our trends this morning, we're going to start with that as well. My social media platforms and look up TV across all of them. In fact, then let's jump into our trends this morning so we can see what Kenyans are talking about this morning in terms of what is trending in the country. Good. And I'll beg our audience that is seated at home this morning so that we start with that trend. Yesterday, at that parliamentary session, they clashed with members of Parliament when they felt like he was bullying them. No wonder this headline from the Standard calling him Bully in Chief. Good, here we go. Kewake was saying that I stand with Honorable Anthony Kibagendi. Duale must go. That's what we have this morning. KK Mbogo was saying, much respect to Member of Parliament Anthony Kibagendi for standing with Kenyans and confronting CS. Aden Duale heads on. Draining. We got on with Shola, was saying, I've just seen the video of Honorable Kibagendi telling off Aden Duale point blank that Duale and his friends are the ones looting Shah, that is arrogant because his root was insider, that even controls the same committee meant to oversight him. Goes on to say, for once, thank you, Honorable Kibagendi. Continues to say, Shah is a fraud. We exposed ghost hospitals. We exposed fake suppliers. And what did Duale and DCI do? They staged a PR stunt, arrested a few scapegoats to fool Kenyans, but behind the cameras, the looting never stopped. That's according to Shola this morning. Kenyans are being forced to buy their own drugs, pay for treatment while billions vanish. Duale and his people have even stopped releasing sharp trace the theft. We wrote official letters requesting that data. They ignored them. Now we are taking the legal route. Duale pretends to be a Muslim man of integrity, yet under his watch, hospitals suffer, and Kenyans die. We are being robbed, we are being played, and we will not. That's according to Shola this morning. Let me just read a couple of sentiments, and for those people who want a direct quote of what happened in that video, it is Dwale saying, "Who are you? Dwale, who is in Itisha? Naibia watu." So the direct sentiments of Member of Parliament Anthony Kibagendi in a heated exchange with our Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale. That's CS Aden Duale. Good. Story here from Nelson Amenya, who's saying I have some information on just not a story, but some information on Duale and how he's allegedly using his family to register hospitals that are paid by SHA. Hon Kibagendi's anger is not misplaced. The Kamal thief is up to no good. I'll share once I finish confirming everything. It's just Kenyans responding to their questions. Good. Now, finally then, this time I ask Duale had questions about SHA. He quickly switches to saying, he has closed my hospitals. I don't know which ones. All right? And that is why I'm hard on him. Why can't Duale openly say which hospitals I own when they were registered, who are my proxies, and then go ahead to close them completely? That is Anthony Kibagendi speaking yesterday on the sidelines of that altercation with the Cabinet Secretary for Health in the country. Good. We got on this morning with some of and quickly, Kibagendi is trending as well. It's the same trend because Kibagendi and Duale were trending yesterday. I'll jump quickly to a couple of views that I've seen Kenyans put across on this particular one. This is Kibagendi telling Aden Duale, you and your friends are stealing from SHA. The reckless of one Aden Duale was seated in that parliamentary session. Prosecutor is saying it was at this point that Duale's adrenaline was spiking and his soul freed, was expecting a technical KO from Kibagendi, who decided to deliver it through the alphabets. Goes on to say, you are a thief. In fact, that is what Kibagendi said yesterday. Kenyans really going into what went down in that, saying, you don't respect CS Aden Duale or any other senior public servant in such a manner. Forget being charged in court. Anthony Kibagendi deserves to be found. I will not read the rest of this. Foul, and I've seen majority of Kenyans respond to that. Kinuthia Pius was saying, Anthony Kibagendi lacks self-awareness, reactions. He often speaks without understanding, forming strong opinions on things he barely knows about, yet refuses to listen or learn. His ignorance makes him dismissive of facts and perspectives that challenge his own narrow view of the world. His childishness shows in how he handles situations, sulking when things don't go his way, craving attention, and blaming others for his mistakes. He thrives on drama, turning small disagreements into big sins, and demands constant seeking approval. In essence, he is a man whose body has grown up, but whose mind and emotions remain stuck in adolescence, loud, defensive, and fragile beneath the surface. Oof, that's deep, man. Like they say, it's not that serious. We call on with our trends this morning. Ivory Coast is trending, and we do know why. Were whipped 3-0. Yeah, and I saw a couple of Kenyans celebrate Amad Diallo's goal. Was it supposed to be celebrated? The Man United fans who were Kenyan fans were celebrating that goal for Amad Diallo, and then they realized that, oh, wait a minute, yes, he scored as a Man United player, but then Harambee Stars is losing. Yeah, and this is where they are. They've gone into 8 wins within a period. After missing the 2018-2022 AFCON, the champions are returning to the World Cup. Finally, they're in it, and you can see good pictures there for Amad Diallo. Man United fans can relate to that picture right there. And he scored and assisted in that match. Wakenya International, my players wa Man U wanacheza fiti sana. Yeah, Kenya's got a taste of Amad Diallo. Yesterday, oof, it's painful, but then it is what it is. That's what they say, isn't it? In a rainy atmosphere, cold and rainy, we lost. Nani ndio tunafaa kublame? To blame mvua ama to blame coach ama players? I do not know. Couple of 1 or 2, and then after that we jump into our main conversation this morning. I got a Oletea saying Michael Olunga has become the new scapegoat, just like Victor Wanyama was a few years ago. He's been blamed for everything, including the downpour in Abidjan. Through this, we were outplayed. Ivory Coast was simply on another level through that. And honestly, we faced the African champions, and the outcome, for disappointing, was hardly an unexpected. Eventually, Olunga will be out of the national team and we'll move on to the next target. That's what they're saying on this. As it stands, they have qualified for the World Cup next year. Finally then, the Kenya Defence Forces is trending, and we do know why, because yesterday was a KDF day, and we did see the majority of the promises that the president made, raising the standards of the barracks in the country, and we've also spoken about that from our daily coverage this morning. Beautiful pictures right there from State House of the president in his regalia. That is the KDF regalia. Fantastic. So that's it this morning in terms of our trends. Majority of these stories, by the way, look up TV across all of them. Once you're there, like we say, a like, subscription, and you talking to us is the only thing that we do appreciate out of the job that we are doing to keep on informing you on a daily basis. Now we take a tiny breather. Once we come back, let's talk about artificial intelligence from a Kenyan perspective. We want to know what it means as being ready. We are ranked top 3 in Africa in terms of being ready for AI. What does that mean? And in terms of AI, knowing very well that 4 out of 10 professionals in the country are not trained to use AI. So only 6 is what we have to figure out to increase that percentage. Once we come back right here, I'll be introducing the guest who's joining us this morning. Get your pens and paper. Attention for all the professionals in the country who are even worried about what AI is doing to jobs across Africa. Once we come back right here on The Morning Drift, the hashtag is hashtag The Morning Drift. Good morning.
Taarifa zinapotipuka na kutufikia papa hapa kwenye makao makuu ya chumba cha habari cha runinga ya Lookup, kwenye taifa, kwenye serikali, kwenye bunge, tunajitosa hadi kwenye sauti ya wenyeji ili kupata tu maoni ya wenyeji kuhusu masuala haya yanayochipuka.
Maana hii kitu inaenda kuumiza Mkenya kwa tax.
Hakuna kitu tunafurahia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Sisi tunaumia, si ati tunaumia ile ya kiukweli. Juu maisha ni ngumu.
na bila shaka tunapata maoni yao ili sauti yao ipate kusikika, na watasema hili waseme lile, watasema hiki na waseme kile, almuradi sauti yao ipate taa.
Mambo ya mafuta tena imekuwa ni changamoto zaidi kwa kila mtu wa bodaboda.
Uchumi ikikuwa stable, tunaamini mambo itakuwa sawa sawa.
Kwanza liko na ria wasa wa boda, mama mboga nini. Hao sasa ndio wamefinywa zaidi man.
Penzi mtazamaji, hii ni bunge la wenyeji.
People are there to belittle you. When people are questioning you,
if you don't move fast, of course, yes, you lose it, but then it's not us to push you.
But you do not know the God who has been molding me. What has he been doing to me?
The deep and mature conversations of empowerment for you with a curious mind and an appetite for oriented conversations.
I concur with what you're saying.
You plan your finances, you can easily live without a debt.
An engaging safe space of free expression and truthfulness with an upheld vibrance, motivation and happiness.
So many children who are there, they are not living their dreams.
Join us for deep conversations with Zipporah Gashushe every Saturday from 8 p.m. on Look Up TV.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
There's a lot of figures that you have to contend with when you are talking about artificial intelligence. And if this is a new conversation to you, then you need to go back and revise your books. Because if this is a new term to you, you're not living in this decade. Number one, Kenya, currently as it is, it ranks top 3 countries in Africa in terms of being AI ready. So that means that should we introduce AI in this country, it looks like we are ready to adopt it on a mass scale. That's what this means, and this report I'll be telling you who released it on and said that over 60% of banks in the country are using a way to stop fraud in their transactions. But then it goes on to say that only 4 out of 10 Kenyan tech workers have formal AI training. Ooh, that's less than 50%. So that's why we're not doing okay. Because then you can imagine that there's a huge 60% of do not have AI training. Now, let's talk about where we are in terms of AI economy, because it is projected that 45 billion US dollars can be pumped into the Kenyan economy by 2030 using AI. Which therefore begs us to ask this question this morning on exactly where we are as a country in terms of being AI ready. All over, essentially, when it comes to AI, is worked with Microsoft previously. is being in positions that can give us a proper perspective on where the country is in terms of being AI ready, and also what our opportunities are when it comes to conversations around artificial. Welcome to the conversation. One, Abdullahi Mohammed, who's the country lead AI collective. Mr. Mohammed, how are you doing, sir?
I'm very fine, sir. Thank you very much for the well introduction. Really do appreciate it. I'm very much honored to be present here and share my thoughts and insights on how our country can foster innovation and be the leading AI hub in Africa and digitally in the world. Yeah. Thank you very much, Simba.
Fantastic. I would like us to look at these numbers even before we jump into our conversation. They say that Kenya ranks top 3 in terms of being AI ready. Mohammed, what does it mean, being AI ready?
The fact that operation-wise companies can operate, AI companies can operate in the country. That means AI readiness to upskill the digital side of artificial intelligence, and also to upskill the youth. That means we are number 3 in Africa. So also coming up with an AI national strategy that can help foster innovation and also regulate how AI and also data sharing is being used across different sectors in the country. So being number 3 means the fact that, like, based on the requirements and the resources that artificial intelligence needs to foster. So statistics-wise, we are part of the 80% of emerging markets in the world, and unfortunately 80% of emerging markets in the world get less than 10% of artificial intelligence investments. Being top 3 in Africa, that means we are basically behind countries like Nigeria and South Africa.
Yes.
So soon, by 2030, from the predictive analysis that we've been doing, Kenya will become number 1 in Africa. There's a certain investment that Microsoft and a company based in Middle East called G40, they're investing $1 billion in Kenya to basically build data structures. Without the infrastructure, AI cannot foster. AI's innovation cannot foster. Also, there's a basically 2025 to 2030 government AI innovation strategy that the government has come up with. This will be able to regulate how companies operate around artificial intelligence, data sharing, and also algorithmic, how do I put it, basis. It will also help basically 75% of Kenya's population is the youth. So the biggest phobia that a lot of people usually have about artificial intelligence is being basically the fear of being displaced.
Yes.
So that means once we set up a very responsive and also very well regulated AI strategy system, we'll be able to adopt all these innovations, set up hubs so that we can become competitive on international level scale.
That's it.
As a country, yeah.
Fantastic. And I know we're going to get into that conversation as well. Just let's keep on looking at the highlights. Does it worry you that even as we talk about us being AI ready, in places where artificial intelligence is deeply needed, that is tech, you'll find that only 4 out of 10 tech workers in this country are trained on artificial intelligence. Does that concern you as an expert in this area?
It really does concern me. Actually, sometimes it also makes me have sleepless nights, to be honest, due to the fact that this is a technology that is moving rapidly. The adoption rate needs to be rapid as well. 4 out of 10, that is very a bad number, but that shows there's a room for improvement, whereby as a country we can change from 40% to 70%, 80% due to these strategies and also these collaborations between foreign data tech companies and also our local government, basically fostering innovation by setting up basically environments whereby us Kenyans, we can basically come up with AI startups just to solve our local problems currently experiencing. For example, the healthcare system, it's undocumented. The financial system, whereby there's a lot of unbanked population in Kenya.
Yes.
So artificial intelligence can be used to basically include all of the marginalized groups. So 4 out of 10, that's a very, very, statistics-wise, that's a bad number, but that's a room for improvement.
That's it.
Always, artificial intelligence as a technology is always improving. So it always depends on the data that it's trained on.
That's it.
So that being said, 4 out of 10, that means 60% of the population can be displaced due to basically adopting artificial intelligence tools, etc., etc. So that is a big problem. So that means they will be economically be cut off from basically getting their day-to-day bread, because artificial intelligence can do the work that they're able to do.
Yes.
So what I was suggesting was the government basically through initiatives can do something called reinforced skilling. Reinforced skilling, a platform that the government has rolled out is called Ajira. Ajira is a platform that is used to upskill the youth. So with that, they can basically restructure it and add artificial intelligence literacy courses there, so that the youth who have been left out, 60% of the technical workers, can be trained on how they can reinforce AI into their skill set and basically be competitive in the talent market out there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. Let's now talk about where we are. Mohammed, I mean, 2030 has looked like it's very, very far away, especially under Vision 2030. You will find that AI is actually well covered in it, and it wants to transform this country into a tech force. And this is what I know. If you look at this Kenya's AI strategy, it's setting ambitious goals by 2030, essentially on areas around innovation, skills, and governance. Let's begin on this. Do you think that 2030, under these skills, for Kenya's artificial intelligence strategy, this national strategy, do you think it's too ambitious? Because 2030, Mohammed, is what, 4 years away from now?
4 years away, exactly, yeah. And time goes fast, to be honest.
It does.
Time does really go fast. I feel like it's a big ambition, to be honest. And the timeline, it's under a very, very restricted timeline, meaning the fact that there'll be a lot of stress that the system will incur due to the fact that it's not planned out well. The strategy is not planned out. 2030 is a bit too early to inject $45 billion into the economy. That means that is almost half of our annual GDP that we generate annually. So that being said, it's a big ambition, but it's not something that can't be done. The first step that we need to come up with is an AI Act, National AI Act. So we can basically base it on other regions in the world. EU has an act, America has an act. So basically we can look at what success has come up from the acts and basically include it and localize it for Africa. So that being said, by 2030, it's a very, very short period of time, unless, as we do know, unless the collaboration comes very, 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 very supportive from the government, because without this, as a country, when it comes to adoption, it's always been the private sector first, then the public sector later. But the public sector is the one that is regulating how operations, day-to-day operations are run, and also how data is actually interacted with by companies, because we live in a world whereby right now the biggest resource that we have is data. It's not gold anymore, it's not petroleum anymore. The petroleum that was found in Turkana side, it ain't that anymore. It's not agriculture anymore, it's data. That is the new gold mine. So as a country, if we can take advantage of this new technology, the good thing about us Kenyans is adoption-wise, we are very, very fast. So based on the recent research, Kenya, we are #1 in Africa, in the world actually, to be honest, when it comes to activeness on ChatGPT. So that means we are very, very competitive when it comes to adopting this new technology. The only part, the private sector has already adopted it. It's now the government to basically collaborate with the private sector to enhance adoption of this process, of this system very, very fast, so that the ambitious goal that they've set by 2030 to inject $45 billion into our GDP, it's possible. I don't think it will be achieved, but everything is possible as long as collaboration is fostered. Yeah.
Pretty much. That point now where you've spoken about that we need to collaborate with the private sector, because the private sector is making good steps in it. I was told to put this question to you. If you look at the most advanced countries when it comes to adoption of AI, you'll find that they even have cabinet secretaries for AI or ministers for AI. They have a complete ministry that is in charge of AI. But in this country, I was doing my research on it. I found that this is something that would be under ICT. That's why it's enshrined. From where you're sitting this morning, Mohammed, do you think that that act that you're pushing for should also come in and say, we need an entire ministry for artificial intelligence if we're going to make these steps towards 2030?
I definitely agree with you that we need to come up with we need to set up a body that, number one, will regulate AI operations in the country. Number two, it will also foster AI innovations, whereby also, number three, a fund. I'd just suggest the government set up a fund in collaboration with big tech companies. For example, Microsoft is already investing $1 billion into our economy, so that means a lot of jobs will be created. A lot of models, locally trained models will be perfected. So natural and NLP, it's a natural language processing. That is what basically AI runs on. So basically, we'll also customize our LLMs, large language models. So a lot of it can also come up. We can also render to basically localizing processes and also data in Kenya. So, for example, one thing that I just suggest is universities and TVETs. These are basically where upskilling takes place. So the government can introduce AI-vetted courses into the curriculum. Then what else? There's a lot of stipends that the government can put with the innovation funds. Thank God, Kenya, we have smart cities coming up. Konza Metropolis, it's one of them. 30 cities is the other. So that being said, the government has already, the government infrastructure-wise, it has already done its part. Now the biggest challenge that we're having is coming up with high performance computing. So the high performance computing basically means this is the systems that AI runs on. So the biggest advantage with artificial intelligence is time saving. So artificial intelligence, let's put it at this point, it's like me and you, we've been set the same task, but we have someone else who's actually helping us get that task done. So it will save up on time, and also you do understand the relation, time is directly related to money. So if time is being saved, money is also being saved. So that means there'll be resources, financial resources that has been saved that can be allocated to somewhere else. And also empower the youth basically by giving them the skill set that is needed so that they can economically benefit from it. So I just suggest, because right now, based on statistics wise, last year Kenya was #1 in Africa when it comes to startup investment technology wise. Kenya got $750 million, if I'm not wrong, last year. So that being said, investment wise, we are leading in Africa. So if we're leading in Africa, that means we have a booming entrepreneurial economy, whereby a lot of people are entering into the startup sector, innovating and coming up with ideas and also solutions that we can solve our local problems. So $750 million being #1 in Africa investment-wise in technology, that means we have an advantage whereby we can get more investments for our AI innovations in the country. So the whole point is the government set up an innovation fund. That innovation fund, we also set up a sandbox. So there's something called the capital markets, which has a sandbox whereby innovations can register and it can be monitored to figure out and regulated later onwards. So the government can also create an artificial intelligence customized sandbox whereby AI innovations and startups can actually apply and get funded so that innovation and adaptability can be fostered and it can move faster than, so that by the goal that they have for 2030 for injecting $45 billion into the economy can be actualized there.
That's it. In extension to whatever it is you're speaking about, we do know that there's massive investments that are needed now in terms of cloud computing and also data processing centers in the country, even if that 2030 goal is going to be achieved. But Mohammed, beyond that, you can see we are leading even in the adoption of ChatGPT across the world. It's a striking factor right there. But then somebody asked the question, even if we're talking about adoption of artificial intelligence, are we going to reach a level where we're saying, now we need local artificial intelligence models that are essentially made for this economy? Or should we forget that and just purely adopt what is getting used internationally?
I'd just suggest, to be honest, it will be a very, very massive mistake adopting what is solely what is being built out there.
Yes.
The whole point of artificial intelligence
is that going to be a challenge?
It will be a big challenge.
Even locally, I do know that currently, as it is, when we're looking at these web service providers, Amazon is now leading in the country in terms of giving us those kind of services. Is it a challenge for the government to lead that conversation? Just like how China is leading that conversation for artificial intelligence, where we're saying, well, we have to meter what is coming from outside. Where are we? What's Kenya's position in terms of deciding our local AI models vis-a-vis what is currently getting used internationally, Mohammed?
At the stage of development, we are at infant stage. Yes. There are a couple of companies and also a couple of research, because the whole point of artificial intelligence is based on the data that the model is trained on.
That's it.
So if we train our AI systems on other data sets that is foreign to us, we don't have the sovereign capacity to solve our own issues. Why? Because the data that we have trained the models is not our own localized data, so it doesn't understand the local challenges that the average Kenyan goes through. So that being said, we really do need to basically go hard on basically building localized data set models and training the AI systems that will come up with on those localized data set models. The most important thing that we can now start working on is research. So Kabarak University has taken an initiative whereby it's basically building a natural language processing for Kiswahili. So whereby chatbots, basically customer care agents, they can be trained. If I'm making a phone call, basically, and I'm basically in the diaspora, like outside Nairobi, outside these big mega cities, and most of our population is there, if we do not have localized data sets that understand the local economy, the local infrastructure, the local culture, yes, it will be hard to come up with solutions that will be basically, that can optimize and also come up with basically, how do I put it, results that can save time, yes, and also increase customer satisfaction rate. So that being said, we do need to focus more on coming up with locally trained models compared to, with the outside world, we can just compare and contrast, see what's working for them.
Yes.
Basically just retraining the models that they've come up with and also using the systems that they've set up for operations, and then maybe we can localize it for our economy here in Kenya. Yeah.
Pretty much. I was told to ask you this question. Then as we relate to your response right there, I know we celebrated when Microsoft announced that they're going to have their center right here in the country. From what you're saying this morning, if you were the CS now for artificial intelligence in the country, what conversation could you be leading on with Microsoft in as much as this conversation is concerned? And currently as it is, I mean, when you look at that center that they did set up in this country, do you think it is moving the country closer to this conversation that we're having this morning, or it is giving us an international investment, which essentially we are not dictating the terms and the direction that investment is going to go in the country?
I agree with you that the most important thing is IP data sharing policies. That's and it. Also IP sharing models. So that's IP it. Is intellectually property sharing models, whereby if there's innovation that has come up with due to the collaboration between Microsoft and our government, there's a way that basically we can reap rewards based on the intellectual property and also the innovation that we have.
That's it.
Secondly is the data sharing act that you said. As a former Microsoft senior engineer, one of the things I'd love to applaud Microsoft is before even 2030, there'll be $1 billion injected into our economy. So, number one thing we do need for us to compete, yes, internationally wise with in this AI race, we need high performance computing. So that means we need data centers that can analyze, compute the large data sets that is being fed into the system on a daily basis, decrease hallucinations, whereby if the system is not trained with appropriate data sets, and also clarity. Clarity is where basically AI is the biggest challenge that AI currently has is clarity. It hallucinates a lot. Yes. So with that being said, we need to come up with data sharing policies whereby if the data that is generated from operating under Microsoft Cloud Infrastructure, Azure, will that data be retained locally, whereby it will be owned by our citizens here or the government, or will that data be owned by Microsoft? That's the first thing that we need to come up with, data sharing policies, whereby if this is the data set that we'll be training AI models in, who owns the data? Whoever owns the data gets to own basically the AI systems later on, or they get to own the results that the artificial intelligence will come up with. As I had mentioned, is previously is also coming up with the advantage that we'll get is we'll be competitive because we'll have high performance computing infrastructure. $1 billion is a lot when it comes to data centers. So we already have one data center, Africa data center for Microsoft. It's in Westlands. If they'll basically, once the $1 billion investment is injected into the country, there'll be a lot of data centers that will come up with. So that means we'll be able to compete on international level wise in this AI race. The IP sharing model that we need to come up with, whoever, basically, so that innovation is basically, how do I put it, rewarded to the right people. Yes. And also the data sharing model to make sure the fact that there's a Data Protection Act 2019 that the government came up with, so that personalized data does not, is not violated. But now the biggest issue that AI violates data privacy a lot. So there's two sectors of AI. There's generative AI and there's responsible AI. Generative AI is the one that basically you generate information that you want through prompting, using these ChatGPT tools, Gemini, etc., etc. Now, responsible AI is basically AI that has compliance. It's been regulated so that data privacy is not violated, and also it doesn't come up with biased results. So as you do recall, there was someone who tried to use Gemini to come up with a portrait of an African family, but because of the biasness based on the data set that it was trained on, it showed white people. So that is one of the biggest challenges that AI has. If the data set that is trained on is biased, the results will be biased. So for us to avoid discrimination, that is something that we really need to look into.
That's it. Yeah. Fantastic. There's so many areas that I want us to talk about once we come back. Even on areas on data protection. I mean, that act on data protection, I do not think it's really gone so much into AI, but we also need to look into what data protection, just as you're saying, data protection in response to AI now, which we're also pushing for so much in the country. Where are we as a nation? It's a good thing that Mohammed is here, and you can hear the information that is coming for him, quite rich, quite deep this morning. Once we come back, the financing that we're talking about, how can you start to be a part of it? There's so much money that is getting pumped into this area. How can you be a part of it, and what kind of business would you be creating with that money that's coming into the country once we come back from this tiny little breather right here on The Morning Drift?
People are there to belittle you. When people are questioning you,
if you don't move fast, of course, yes, you lose it, but then it's not us to push you.
But you do not know the God who has been molding me. What has he been doing to me?
The deep and mature conversations of empowerment for you with a curious mind and an appetite for